All right. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
And
Friday.
welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us all the way from downtown Minneapolis, Matthew French. All right. And we are excited to have him joining the show today. And I don't know. It's nice to see that even with the new snow, it's melting again here in Minneapolis. And it's the weekend, so I'm starting to feel better. But I know I'm going to feel a lot better when we get some music and conversation going on. Looks like Connie has joined us from Ritual.
Hey,
Hi,
Connie.
Connie. And if you're out there listening, tell us where you are tuned in from. Oh, that might be our friend Ted Hanashevitz joining us with all the hand claps. And yeah, tell us where you're tuned in from, if you're enjoying a beverage on or a snack as we kick off our weekend together. My dad joining us from Connecticut and Joseph. And Tony, are you enjoying a beverage on this
I
Friday?
am. I am. I'm staying local here with the Guavatron here from Baja's Brew Labs.
Oh, very
So if you
nice.
can, it's this. I'm like calling this my fruit for the day. It's got real fruit, made with real fruit.
Made with real fruit. Well, that's good. I don't think there's any fruit in what I'm drinking. It looks a little too,
Oh no,
let's see which way oh, there we go. The Bell's Porter
just dark
happening. Just
goodness.
get out a fork for that one. And Matt, what are you enjoying?
I am on brand with the Sweet Love album and Far North Spirits Rocknar whiskey.
Oh, nice.
Ooh,
One of
that
my
sounds good.
faves in a Minnesota company as well.
Oh, wonderful. I should have, I might have to go for a little jaunt to the liquor store. That looks really good. But not before we have a wonderful hour of music and conversation. That's for sure. We're excited to have folks joining us. Beth and
Joel and Beth.
Joel from Golden Valley. And yeah, cheers, everyone. Here's to Friday.
Yeah, here's to Friday. If you're new to the show, this is what we do every Friday. We meet with our favorite artists and we have a beverage and we listen to one of the albums in their back catalog and we nerd out about the music and the writing and the recording and everything in between. And it really is a conversation. So we invite anybody out there who's listening live to jump into the comments and ask your questions for Matthew, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, indeed. And for folks who are not familiar with your music, Matthew French, why don't you give us the brief 2-minute origin story, where you came from? Maybe not, metaphysically, but literally where you grew up and how you got to writing songs, maybe in particular what led up to this record.
Well, back sometime in 1977, my parents, they kind of did this thing, but
All the way back.
origins for sure. Matthew French, as far as songwriting, I grew up playing music in the church, and I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio, and I moved to Minneapolis in 2005. Um, I was working as a youth minister and music pastor at a church here. Um, Somehow my journey led me to becoming a singer-songwriter around the 2014, 2015 timeframe. And, I think everybody finds their niche, the thing that kind of lights them up. And I found that songwriting really, really just made me feel like that I had found my thing. And so I've released a couple of EPs and a couple of full-length albums at this point. Today we're going to be talking about my 2018 album, Sweet Love. And I love songwriting so much. I love hearing other songwriters. I love being out and about in the community, listening to people perform their songs. I love the camaraderie that comes along with it. And I love the craft. And I love, I think most of all, I love hearing what's coming from people's hearts. And I think that's what we get to do as songwriters. So happy to be here talking about the album today.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I'm ready for some sweet love. I don't know about all of you, but let's dig into the record. And the first song that you picked to feature from the record is the title track. Is there anything you want to say about it before we take a listen?
Yeah, I think the album in and of itself thinking back on it now, it just feels obnoxiously sweet. Like everything about it, there isn't like I'm typically writing about angst, and I was really at a period in my life where I had dealt with some personal things, divorce, and I think I needed positivity, and I needed to know that love was still a thing. And so that's really, as we kind of kick off talking about this album, I think that's a good place to start.
Excellent. I know that's what I need to kick off my weekend. This is Matthew French with Sweet Love here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Oh, my baby, you're the only one that could save me. Just one look in your eyes, love caught me by surprise. Oh, my darling, I never saw you come. Just one glimpse of you, and I see my truth. Sweet love, won't you take me down? Sweet love, won't you take me down tonight? Sweet love, won't you take me down to the place where I belong? I belong with you. Oh, my honey, you're all I've ever wanted. Give you all of my charms, spend my life in your arms. You drive me crazy, and I love you, baby. Wouldn't have it any other way, to be with you night and day. Sweet love, won't you take me down? Sweet love, won't you take me down tonight? Sweet love, won't you take me down to the place where I belong? I belong with you. Sweet love, won't you take me down? Sweet love, won't you take me down tonight? Sweet love, won't you take me down to the place where I belong? I belong with you. I belong with you.
Ah, sweet.
Sweet.
Sweet Love from Matthew French's 2018 album of the same name. And I have to say, Matthew, or should I call you M? I saw that on the cover of the album, it says M French, not Matthew French. And so, um, were you performing under that name at the time of this record?
I was, yes. Funny thing about that, my friend who produced the record, Danny O'Brien of Farewell Circuit fame, you may know him from the Twin Cities here, and just fantastic musician and songwriter. We were in the studio recording. He did my first two EPs and the Sweet Love record, and we're in the studio, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to play these songs for people at some point. What should I call myself? And he was like, "How about M French?" I think there's M Ward that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see, and I think that's probably where the thought came from. And I was like, "Sure, I don't know any better or know what the hell I'm doing. Let's call myself M French." And so, I think it became somewhat of a character for me, like the whiskey drinking. I got like guitar straps that said M French, and I still have them, and I may pull them out. I think there was something about this album. Like I said, I needed something in my life that was positive, and I wanted to feel not the way that I was actually feeling. And so I created this thing that really was like a springboard for me to where I'm at today in a more positive place in my life.
Mm.
Awesome.
Yeah, and sometimes, yeah, putting on the trappings of the life that you want. It's like a self-actualization or something. You can live into it.
Yeah, well, and
Um,
I was just gonna say that like when I listened to this record, it was just a vibe. That's all I can say. It's just like it was a total vibe, and it really like that positivity and that those things that you were just describing really did kind of shine through. And we're looking here at a picture of you sitting next to a neon sign that says "Sweet Love," and there's just something like kind of awesomely 80s or something even about that. There's a lot going on. It seems like something that like an entire package that you were putting together, and I would just love to hear about your approach to the kind of the I don't know the design of it as well as the music and the songwriting.
Yeah, I think as we got more into making the record, I was listening to a lot of country music at the time. Sirius XM, The Highway was like my jam that I just listened to all the time when I was on the way to work and on the way to home. And so I think there was like this neon country thing that I was going for. And so with the artwork and with the, kind of the promotion of it, I kind of wanted everything to be neon. I wanted the positivity to shine through. And I think that particularly with the title of Sweet Love, it was kind of this like we're inviting everybody that listens to this album to just take a break for however long this album is and forget all the other stuff and think about the good things in life. And I feel like we created that. I think part of it is in the songs and the songwriting. But as I was listening to that song, Kenny Wilson played the pedal
I
steel
was gonna
on
ask
this
who that
record, and
so
was.
I was
good.
like,
Love Kenny.
I forgot how dang good that guy is, and how much that lent itself to the vibe of the album. Everybody who played on it and had a hand in it, from the artwork to the production, really, I think, caught the vision and took it to a place that, for sure alone I could not have done.
I'm glad you mentioned Kenny. I was wondering as I was listening, I was really struck by the pedal steel. It's one of my favorite instruments, one of the most
Yeah.
emotive instruments, of melancholy feel. But of all the pedal steel players that I've, had the pleasure to work with, Kenny really speaks music. I mean, he listens to what's happening and responds to it. And throughout this album, I encourage everybody to listen to the back and forth between what Matthew's saying and what Kenny's playing. It's pretty
Mm.
special.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and Wiley mentioned always a treat when I see you working with Sarah Morris. Cool to hear a little bit more about you and your music. Love the Minneapolis music scene. I echo what Wiley says. And Sarah Morris was a past guest here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Was that her singing on the harmony vocals, or who was joining you on that track?
That was a lot of the pretty much any other vocal aside from mine that you hear on this record would be Sarah, and I'm so grateful to, I feel like we kind of have, aside from like our vocals blending, we kind of, I don't know, heart wise move in the same direction. So it's always fun when you have other people that are around that aren't just a great vocal, and we're lucky to have many people like that in the Twin Cities music scene where you can like just enjoy singing with someone or enjoy playing with someone, aside from the talent, the immense talent. It's just so great when your hearts are kind of moving the same direction too.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And you could definitely hear that on that song. And getting back to that neon sign, the Sweet Love, um, did I hear you say before we were coming on the show here that you own that neon sign?
I do. I have it. Yeah, it's
Oh,
it
look at
it
that. There's Sarah Morris right there. And I know
Benja's
that
house as
and I
well.
know that other gentleman too. I might be broadcasting from his office, just might be. But yeah, it looks like. So tell us a little bit about the sign. So you had to have it specially made, or did you buy, or did you find the sign?
Yeah, no, I had it specially made, some just Google search neon sign maker that could, kind of again had this vibe in my head and was trying to like put all these pieces together to figure out how it was going to come out into the world. And so I just found this sign maker online and, kind of took a flyer, financially investing in a neon sign that perhaps I might use a couple of times or perhaps might sit in my storage area here for all of time.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, maybe at some point we'll auction it off. It'll be worth millions of dollars when my yes.
That's definitely true. Well, speaking of that, I should just mention this, and we'll mention it again before the show is out. But if you want to pick up a copy of this album and get all those sweet pedal steel sounds in your ears and get the high res files, the production value is really great on this record. And you can buy the album from Matthew directly at his website, mfrenchmusic.com. And you can get physical copies. Of course, you can download the high res files too. But artists get a lot more when you buy their album, and we want to help fund the next record and help get that album to be platinum record right here.
Hmm. Got to get that price of that neon sign up.
Exactly.
Right.
And so if folks out there have any questions or comments about the songs, people are loving the music. And Joni also echoes what you said, Matthew, about Sarah being terrific. And
Thanks, Beth.
then you can all throw those comments and questions in there as we go today. About anything, neon signs, music, pedal steel, whatever it might be. The next song that you chose to feature on today's show, Matthew, is Tonight. Is there anything you want to say about it?
This song was born out of a night at Astor Cafe in Minneapolis. Not surprising that I would be there. I'm there often. But this night was a little different. In that I was meeting someone for, maybe you'd call it a date. I don't call it that because I probably saw I have a way out of things is really the truth behind that. But I was meeting someone there and we're sitting at the bar talking and, just having a great time. And I love, one of the things that I love about a bar, but specifically Astor Cafe's bar, is I'm sitting on one side and the longer part of the bar is just filled with people. And there's always people there on their first date or, that they're just meeting or whatever. I happen to be one of them on that night. But this next song was born out of thinking about all of these people and their conversations and getting to know each other and potentially falling in love.
Awesome. I'm pretty sure the Astor has been voted the best first date venue in the Twin Cities, like for the last 10 years. All right, everyone have that image in your head. I love it. This is Matthew French Tonight here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Again on a snowy night, moonlit city in a bottle of wine, talking about love from another time when the world was right. Friends and lovers up and down the bar, old conversation about the dreams in our heart, people just trying to be who we are and hope that's enough. Is it love we're looking for? Tell me now, baby, have one more. it's shining on us tonight. Fall in love by the end of the show. Turn it up loud on the radio and drive. Don't care where we go. We got love, got the world on a string. Don't need money or a diamond ring. Got each other, we don't need a thing, anything but us. Is it love we're looking for? Tell me now, baby, have one more. In your eyes, I see the stars. There's a light, and it's shining on us tonight. We're gonna dance in the moonlight tonight. We'll forget about our cares tonight. We're gonna fall in love tonight. Is it love we're looking for? Tell me now, baby, how more. In your eyes, I see the stars. There's a light, and it's shining on us. Yeah, it's shining on yeah, it's shining on us tonight.
Have to wait for that last pedal steel note. That was Matthew French with Tonight from his 2018 album Sweet Love, which we are revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. This is the show where we invite guest artists to revisit their old records and talk about them. And folks loving the music, Beth and Ted and Joe all commenting on that tune. And if you have your own comments or questions, feel free to share them there in the live chat. And a few things I was noticing about that song. First of all, I'd be remiss, given the company you're keeping right now, Matthew. Was there some banjo on that track?
There was, yes. Kenny Wilson also played the banjo on that.
Nice.
He can play it all. That
Yeah.
sounded great. And speaking of, while we're on that topic, you shared a cool picture of some studio stuff going on, and I'd love to hear about kind of everyone involved with this recording.
Yeah, as I was listening back to the track there, I don't often sit around listening to my own music, but but hearing the track back, just really grateful for all of the folks that had a hand in the album because they really filled the spaces. Steve Bosman's, he's there with the Sunburst guitar on the right in the middle. And he's there are a couple of people that I trust from a guitar standpoint. Just for me personally, my favorite guitar players, and Steve's one of them, because he just knows when to play and when not to play. I don't have to, when you don't have to direct someone and they just fill the spot that you would, that's where I would have wanted to hear something. Steve Bosman's played guitar on the record. Top right is Beck Niebel. He played the bass. Just a wonderful bass player. And there's some songs that if you buy the album or listen to it online, in particular, there's a song called "Burn It Down," where he came up with this bass line that will just rock your socks off. Really hard to see, but in the middle on the left is Joel Bowers on the drums. And then the bottom two pictures are Danny O'Brien. Again, just one of my best friends that I met when I moved to Minneapolis in 2005. One of the first folks that I became close with, and just really still super close with he and his wife and family today. So grateful for his hand in it. Without him, I wouldn't be anywhere that I am in music. So
Well, sounds fantastic. So was it just recorded in that space we were seeing there? Is that his studio or where?
yeah, Danny, he calls it Hot Dad Labs, and he's in a
Nice.
basement in South Minneapolis. He built a studio in his basement, and there's the drum room that was kind of isolated, and then everyone else is out by the kids' toys and things of that nature.
Nice.
And that's the magic of music these days. We can do it that way.
Mhm.
Did any of those kids' toys end up on the record by chance?
They might if you listen really closely.
Wouldn't be the first time, right, Ellen?
No,
I'm
I
thinking of
Eliza
Eliza Gilkinson's
exactly. There's
guitar
a
solo.
we'll have to reference that episode, but I'll just say right now, we you'll be able to hear both this episode with Matthew French, and you can check out all these photos that we're sharing. Maybe you're just listening as you're in transit or something to the show today. You'll be able to check out all the photos and stream the whole episode at backcataloglisteningparty.com. And when you're there, you can check out past episodes like the episode with Eliza Gilkison, where she talks about employing a kid's instrument as part of her recording, which is pretty fantastic. Again, Matthew French is our guest today on the Back Catalog Listening Party, talking about Sweet Love. And that song we just heard tonight, you mentioned that it was inspired by being at the Astor Cafe and, observing people on first dates. And I have to say that is a spot where I realized that the last time I was at the Astor Cafe was seeing your album release show. And actually the last two times I was at the Astor was to see Anthony Ihrig play with the High 48s for the Bluegrass Brunch, and for Matthew French's album release show, because you actually just released a new 2-part album called Two Sides. And this is kind of a cool concept record. And maybe you could tell us briefly about that, so that when they're at your website checking out Sweet Love, they might want to pick this thing up too.
Yeah, you're gonna see the newest album, Two Sides, on the front page of my website. But we actually started recording that record right as the pandemic began, not knowing what was happening, and so it took quite a while to finish it, just with various delays of all of the things that the world was going through. But Two Sides is really kind of this. If Sweet Love was the obnoxiously sweet record, I feel like Two Sides is kind of this yin and yang sort of thing. Like it feels like there's a little bit of, we all went through so much during the last couple of years with the pandemic, and everybody kind of had their own experiences, but a lot of the underlying feelings there were shared. And I feel like it really covers the kind of like the loneliness that a lot of us felt. And for me, it covers turning the page from, where I was in life to where I'm going. And then, it wouldn't be a Matthew French album if it didn't have some positivity in there. And so I feel like we get it. We get a little bit of everything of Matthew French on that record, and I'm really, really proud of it, and grateful to be moving ahead in my musical journey.
And it's great because, again, that was released as two separate albums and then brought together on this vinyl release. So it's literally two sides, which
Two
I also
sides.
really love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Unintended.
That
Yes.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it wouldn't be a Matthew French conversation if there wasn't some pun that found its way into the conversation.
Well, I just want to mention, if you're just listening, go to mfrenchmusic.com to check out Two Sides, and you can purchase the vinyl at his website. But speaking of that, you were mentioning it wouldn't be a Matthew French album without positivity and these certain kinds of, there's clearly some you have some values that you like to infuse into your music. And I was thinking about you mentioning that you were a youth minister, and I'm just curious what kind of parallels that you have found from your ministry work and your songwriting work. Is it an extension of it? Is it something that has it changed? I'd just love to hear a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I think while not doing that as a profession anymore, I think there's so many lessons, there's so many parallels. Really, um, when we get the privilege of performing with for a crowd, you're trying to bring everyone together around an idea, a song, a jam, a groove, whatever it might be, and you know, not to like equate religious experience with music or anything of that nature, but it certainly is kind of the same feeling often that you get of we're going someplace beyond the room that we're in, we're going someplace beyond the space that we're in, and we're connecting in a way that is beyond the norm. And I think that's the thing that I draw the parallel to the most of the way that I've been able to have the opportunity to connect with people, and through shared experience, through musical experience, through love of music. And I would say that that's the parallel. And I'm just grateful that kind of thing exists, both inside the walls of like a religious experience, and certainly in so many places outside of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Thanks.
for sure. And we're really excited that we get to have these kinds of conversations and these shared experiences here on the back catalog, because we started the show 3 years ago when we couldn't gather together. And not that it's the same as hearing live music together in a space, but being able to there's something about enjoying music in real time together that is really special. And it's certainly special to me and Anthony that we get to do this with all of you out there. So
And
um,
that's probably it for me. All of you, Joel says, so well said, my friend. And just to think that Joel is able to connect with Matthew, and we're all able to still connect here. It is very special, and
Mhm.
appreciate that.
mhm. And the next track that you picked to feature on today's show is Back to You. Is there anything you want to say about this before we take a listen?
Yeah, I really wanted this song to have I feel like it's if I remember correctly, this is the oldest as far as when it was written song. And I wrote it and I was like, "Oh, I like it, but I don't know if it can be anything." And we got to this record and I wanted it to have such a 70s vibe, talking again about the concept of the album and really like bringing this idea to life. And when you hear it here, have that in mind. I see, like my parents dancing in 1977, which led to me being born, kind of a thing.
The
Full
origin
circle.
story right here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's give it a listen. Everyone enjoy Matthew French, Back to You, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Know you think it's over, but I know the truth. There's a whole world out there waiting for you. Someone broke your heart and you played the part. This game of love we all try to play. When you think that it's over, just be strong. When the world's getting colder, just hold on, just hold on. Love will find a way back to you. Oh, love will find a way back to you. Love will find a way
All right, Matthew French with "Back to
Nice.
You" from his 2018 album "Sweet Love," and I hope you caught our very sweet dance moves that we were
Oh
doing. We were
man.
all swaying,
Oh
to
yeah.
that.
I was wearing a leisure suit in my fantasy there. And you nailed the decade there, man. The beat that bass tone and the organ. That was great.
Yeah,
And
Andre Rodriguez on the keyboards on that one, who's a great friend and just a heck of a player and writer and talent, crazy talent.
Beth saying, "Yes, very 1977," and I know firsthand. So very credible. And listening to the 70s vibes, and you mentioned when you were making this record, you were listening to lots of uh, country music. But when you're thinking of like the 70s and kind of growing up in late 70s and 80s, like what was the kind of music that was being played in your house?
Oh man, so my parents were hippies, and so obviously listening to their hippie music from the '60s. But growing up in my house, I can't remember tons of music being played, like as far as like ambient noise, during the day or during the evening or whatever. But when I really got into music, and this is strange and probably has zero to do with the Sweet Love album, but when I remember my heyday in high school, I was listening to all kinds of stuff. Like I was listening to rap, I was listening to a lot of like it was the 90s grunge phase kind of a
Hmm.
thing that I was into. Smashing Pumpkins was the first record that I bought. Bush was big in my playlist, and all kinds of crazy things. I think in my old age here, I look back and wonder how. I mean, I think there's an eclectic uh, group of music that I listened to then influences what I do now. So it may not end up as traditional country, or it may, I feel like a lot of what I do has elements of various genres of music. Um, I always when someone asks me what kind of music I do, you better just call it like folk rock or something, because if you put it into a certain category, it's probably they were gonna no, that's not pop, but it has some pop in it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
not rock, but it has some rock in it, and I don't know. I think always I have like I for sure have a stubborn streak in me, and so, like, I wanna tell everybody, "No, you're not gonna pinhole me into a genre."
That is an artist problem in general. I don't think
Yeah.
any artist likes to be called one thing. And
Mm-mm.
but I would say there's two things that seem to run throughout your music. And one is obviously the attention to songwriting, and then also guitar. So we're going to touch on those two things now. Well, first of all, going to the songwriting, Doyle says there's a lyrical honesty that I love in Matt's songs, coupled with an underlying truth that it's going to be all right, which definitely is exemplified on this record. And then Joni asks, do you write songs as they come and then arrange them for an album, or do you write to create an album, or both? You mentioned having songs written at different times, and it is true. This album, much like Two Sides, kind of has a theme. Were you writing to that theme, or were these just the songs you were writing at the same time?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, Joni, and, thanks, Doyle. I really appreciate that, my friend. But to answer the question about the writing, I think that I didn't really know what the cadence was supposed to be when I started writing songs. Like, when do you know that there's supposed to be an album? And I still don't know. In fact, today I was looking through a list of like, maybe 30 songs that I have for my next album, and just now starting to put those together of things that like might make sense as a group. So, with what's coming next, and particularly with this album, Sweet Love, I had bunches of songs that other songs that could have made this album. In fact, there's a song on the Two Sides record called Better Than You that we actually recorded a version for the Sweet Love record. But, I always, for lack of a better term, I call that song a middle finger to my ex. So it didn't really fit on an album called Sweet Love, so, um,
So there are
you
some parameters that you're
yes.
working with.
Yeah, I think that, as I'm writing these days, I've never really written to a particular theme. I've really written what I was feeling. And then, of course, when you're thinking about an album, you want to tell a story. Um, you want to, you want it to be cohesive, not only sonically, but you want it to be cohesive, message wise. And you want to, I think with anything that I do, uh, I want folks to be left with a feeling of being uplifted, or brought to a peaceful state. I think that's really, something that's important to me with my music, that, you feel like you feel like you've been lifted up. You're not in a down place after listening to these songs, even though there might be some experiences that we've had throughout this record, that we're talking about subjects that were hard.
Mhm.
But I think the underlying theme for me that I would love to convey through my music and shows is that, we're all in this thing together.
Mhm. Well, I think that's the minister coming out in you,
Yeah.
Matthew, because I mean, well, and also even the idea that the album is kind of like a unified message, if you will, or a theme, I think is really great, and it certainly uh, jives with what Anthony and I really believing in the album format, which is
Hmm.
why we. One of the other reasons we did this show, not just to reconnect with friends and make new ones and enjoy music every week, but it's also because we love this format of creating songs in a collection and experiencing them in that way. And if folks want to experience this album in its entirety, because we're not going to get to every song, sadly, on today's show, you can check out Sweet Love at mfrenchmusic.com. You can also check out, again, his new record, also available on vinyl, called Two Sides. And I was saying that guitars is another thread of your music, even though we can't find maybe a genre to put you in. Songs and guitars, I think, are two good through lines. And I say guitars because not only are you, of course, a guitar player, and but I did notice that when you introduced Steve Bosman's, when you were talking about the cast of characters that played on this record, you didn't just say, "Oh, that's the one on the right." You said him with the sunburst guitar. Um, so we have to dig into this a little bit because I know you are a big fan, in particular of Gibson guitars. So you are kind of a collector. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, if you look over my shoulder here, they're just the shadow of a bunch of guitar cases, and each one contains a Gibson guitar. I don't know. I think that part of my love for Gibson came from, like, there's this sort of unspoken thing that country players play Gibson guitars, and they've marketed themselves well to that genre of music. But for me, it was partly that, and partly that, like, I played a Gibson guitar and I was like, oh, this is just the sound that I'm looking for, and the feel and the vibe and the look, um, that I cling to. So over the years, I've owned many, many brands of guitars over the years that I've been playing. But now I've kind of, like, limited it to this Gibson thing. And I was talking to a friend earlier, my friend Chris First, who produced the Two Sides record, and he was like, you should start an Instagram and tell the stories of your guitars.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly looking at guitars, not only because I would like to have them, but I just love seeing and learning all the nuances of how they were made when they were old. I have newer guitars, but I have a couple from, my oldest is 1956,
Mm.
and there's something about playing. I was playing that guitar last night, and there's something about a guitar from 1956 that you can't get on a new one. The sound of it, but I think it's the stories, it's the different people that have touched that guitar throughout the years, and maybe what songs they wrote on it, and maybe what energy they put into this instrument that now somehow I've been, entrusted with, and that I might be able to, carry on the legacy of that guitar in some small way. And I know that that sounds like very, very existential, but that's the way I feel when I pick up the guitars. And so
Very
that's
cool.
that's kind of where I'm at.
No,
I love that.
yeah, I'm a firm believer that
Well,
that
it's Oh, go
It's
ahead. What?
oh, just that I think all objects that are, used and utilized by other people change as they get passed along. But I think instruments in particular, because there's something unique that's being created on it
Mhm.
and shared in different spaces with different humans. So it's not just the one person playing it, but it's all the people who've experienced the music as a result of that instrument. It's just cool.
Yeah, and the fact that guitars are made of wood, and wood
Hmm.
is an organic material that absorbs vibration. And so even if you're just looking at it from a scientific perspective, a guitar from 1950s has a lot more vibrations that have been coursing through
Yes.
that wood, and it I mean it makes a difference.
And I think it also knowing that it changes how you approach the instrument too,
Yeah.
when you come to it. So of the ones of some of like say the 1957 guitar you were talking about, do you know much about its history, about who had it before you did, or the have you been able to trace its ancestry? I know they don't have 23andMe for guitars yet, but that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
You'd be
Oh, that would be
surprised, Ellen.
amazing.
Those guitar aficionados, man,
Yeah.
they'll track down a serial number.
Yeah.
I don't know the history on this one. I bought it a couple of months ago from a fella in Florida, and you just kind of that's the other thing that I've really found. There's like a camaraderie in the guitar community that I found a lot of. There are many things where you wouldn't send uh, larger amounts of money to somebody to get something sight unseen, but in the guitar community, there's like this. It's almost like a little bit of a gambling sort of thing. Like, I think this looks and probably sounds good, but so I'm going to take a chance on it kind of thing. And I found like really cool relationships where, different spaces online that are specifically dedicated to guitar conversation. Like people will reach out to me that I've bought guitars from in the past and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling my
Mm.
X guitar. Are you interested?" And where you develop those connections because they know that they're giving it to someone that's trustworthy. And so when I sell, if and when I sell off a guitar, I want it to go to somebody that's going to love it and
Mhm.
carry on the songs and the stories
Mhm.
that I've hopefully been able to put in it.
Love
That's
that.
cool. Yeah, me too.
And Joni says, that reminds me of a Nancy Griffith, Mary Gauthier story about passing down a guitar uh, up and down to an up and coming artist in a songwriter circle, sort of passing down that same historical magic you describe,
Yes.
which is very
Did
cool.
you read Mary Gauthier's book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is something really powerful about that sort of a literal baton you're passing to the next generation. So,
I just also want to tie a thread that just occurred to me while you were talking, Matthew, because you talked about the stories that are kind of living in these instruments. And then Ellen, you were talking about, kind of our love for this format of the album. And I think that's it for me. And you mentioned this too, Matthew, is that an album tells a story. As kind of storytelling creatures, humans are, I don't think there's any substitution for the album format, in that sense. Like singles are great, but it's not quite a beginning, middle, and end, and a moment in time. And I love the idea too that these instruments can kind of carry the story through them. And you oftentimes hear about heirloom instruments, passing an instrument down to a loved one or something like that, and just the thought that all of that lives on. I just wanted to put those two things together because
mhm.
Yes.
I think there's so many parallels there.
For sure. And I do want to say that if you want to throw something in Matthew's tip jar so that to fund the next Gibson guitar purchase, you can do that. M French Music on Venmo. And again, or you can buy, 10 copies of Sweet Love and free up some space in his place. That would be great. And yeah, Ted says 100% this. I think I'm not sure if he was talking about the tipping or the album purchasing or the stories,
All of
but
the above,
we'll
probably.
just say it goes to everything. So thank you, Ted. And yeah, and Joni also commenting on that Mary Gauthier book, Saved by a Song.
Mm.
And well, time is like going really fast. So
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more song here. And the last song you picked to feature was "The Things That Matter." And what can you tell us about this tune?
Yes, I joked with Mother Banjo and Anthony before we started that I've always talked about releasing a greatest hit single, be the first one ever to do that. That it was going to be like if there was one song, and it is there's a joke there, and I might do it at some point just because that's who I am. But also, if there was a song that I would want to be remembered by, this is it. And it was really kind of, I feel like this was a 2016 song, and part of sort of election madness that happened in 2016. Of course, there was election madness that happened in 2020 as well. But our first real taste of what it felt like to kind of be in this. We've always had sides that have been chosen, and it was during this time where it just felt like that really ratcheted up to another level. And part of my heart is peacemaker. I want people to get along, and I want people to get along not only because it's uncomfortable for me when they don't get along, but because we're here and we're living on a planet together, and we're living in a world where we can either make choices to lift other people up or drag them down. And I want to be a part of the camp that says we want to lift you up. And so that's what this song's about.
Matthew French, The Things That Matter, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Good enough ain't always good enough. Life gets rough, even when you try your best. Feeling sad, missing things you used to have. You don't have to understand why things end up like they do. Keep on doing the things that matter. Be kind, keep the peace, love each other, hold out your hand and open your heart. Have faith, give hope, carry each other. The world needs it now more than ever. With a little love we can make it better. Keep on doing the things that matter. These days it seems we're living in a crazy dream. Right ain't right, and wrong ain't wrong. Turn on the news, opinions matter more than truth. I ain't giving up on you. You're my brother, you're my sister. Keep on doing the things that matter. Kind, keep the peace, love each other, hold out your hand and open your heart. Have faith, give hope, carry each other. The world needs it now more than ever. With a little love we can make it better. Keep on doing the things that matter. I don't know where all of this ends, but I know that change starts with me. Keep on doing the things that matter. Be kind, keep the peace, love each other, hold out your hand and open your heart. Have faith, give hope, carry each other. The world needs it now more
Matthew French's future greatest hit, the things that matter. And I feel like that's kind of like, yeah, the gospel according to Matthew French right there. And
Mhm.
I love it.
a great way to finish off the show today. And lots of great comments coming in. Apparently, Ted has been saying every song has been glorious. I just want to point that out. And Joni, you made Joni cry, Matthew,
Mhm.
but in
Oh,
a good way. So thank you so much. And Connie really enjoying the show. And yes, we want to thank Matthew French for joining us today to
Yeah.
revisit this record, Sweet Love, which you can pick up at his website, mfrenchmusic.com. You can also check out upcoming shows there. And I know for Twin Cities folks that you're playing in St. Paul at Amsterdam on March 21st. So folks can check you out there. And you might have these albums for sale there. I don't know. I'm guessing.
I will.
And I like that Wiley just said just bought albums,
Nice.
plural.
Plural.
Thank
Way
you.
to go, Wiley.
That's the way to support artists right there. And if you liked this episode, make sure to like it on the YouTubes. Direct more bots to this guy, Matthew French. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do this every Friday. And I know someone earlier commented, Matthew, you should do this every week. And Matthew, unfortunately, doesn't do it every week, but we do with different guest artists. So if you want to find out who's coming up next on the back catalog, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And another way you can find out about who's coming up next and be on the inside track is to join our Patreon. This is a community of people that have supported the show, kept us going for almost 3 years. Or maybe
my
we passed the
goodness.
3-year mark. And we are so grateful to them. And they get, again, first notice of the shows. They get invited to special after parties. We have one coming up to celebrate our 3rd anniversary. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, and maybe you. If you want to join the party on Patreon, you can go to that link. And but mainly, thank you all for being here. What
Yeah.
a great hour of conversation and music.
Yeah, we really appreciate everybody's comments today. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and again, check out Matthew French's music and see how those guitars tell the next story by following him at mfrenchmusic.com. What a perfect way to start the weekend. I'm
Yeah.
feeling the
I feel
love.
uplifted. I feel
Yes.
uplifted, Matthew.
So mission
You
accomplished.
did your job. Yes. Yeah.
It's
Thank you
empty.
so much. That was a special hour, and I feel like music is something that is one of those things that matter. So we appreciate you and what you do. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And yes, I want to echo what Ted just said. Thank you all. Happy weekend, friends. Cheers.
All right. We'll see you next week on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Take care.